going to go to the losers match first, going to be Fuoliver versus Tiddler. Now, both of these players are pretty accomplished, have a lot of things to their name, but they're going to have to pull it together here in order to win this, as we see both of their bounties definitely have dropped a lot since the start of this match. And the Druid from Tiddler was banned by Fuoliver, whereas the Rogue of Fuoliver was banned by Tiddler. So I guess looking at these decks, looking at these players, who do you favor to get out of this group, Shrink? And I guess we'll go with Rapid first.
Just looking at the aggro shaman, I really like the consistency that deck offers in an aggressive form. However, misplay aside, it hasn't been working out incredibly well for Tiddler, so I'm a little bit shaky. So I'd say if he gets a win with that early, then yeah, sure, things are going pretty well for him. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a runaway, but we've seen most misplays from both players, so I'm kind of interested to see whether or not Fuoliver comes back from this. Now, I haven't actually seen Tiddler play very consistently in a long time, so still only having that last series to go on. I'd maybe give Fuoliver a slight edge, but like I said, we'll see how the consistency from Tiddler's decks work out.
Right, and looks like we're immediately going to be going into Reno Lock versus Malilog, and we didn't see either of these decks in the first round.
Whoa!
Because they both got eliminated too quickly, or not eliminated. They both lost their match too quickly for us to see either of these things. So it's going to be an interesting match. These two decks going against each other. Basically, it's going to be the Malilog trying to be the beatdown, obviously, because there's an extreme amount of healing in the deck of Fuoliver here. It does have actually the Brent in his deck as well, so that'll be interesting to see what kind of battle cries he has to, pair with that. You don't always see Brent in the arena lock, but I guess we haven't asked you yet, Shrink, who do you have coming out of this particular losers match?
Well, I'm definitely giving Fuoliver the advantage, purely out of the circumstance that I don't really see Tiddler play really, because we have tournaments here and there that we have Team Star, we have several Gold Series regionals. Like we see Fuoliver playing a lot of this, but I really didn't see Tiddler play. I didn't see him travel around or something like that. So Fuoliver also has decent results from his recent games. So yeah.
Yeah, I can see definitely where you're coming from. Fuoliver definitely has had decent results recently, but Tiddler was pretty good as recently as summer of 2015 when he won DreamHack and he's on top of his game there. So definitely interesting to see how this goes forward. No dragons, unfortunately, in the hand of of Tiddler, other than the Twilight Guardian, which can't obviously buff itself. So unfortunately, going to have to just play out this ooze and tap. And I mean, as far as these two decks are concerned, it's definitely the Malilog that's going to be the beatdown, going to be wanting to apply that damage, get the board pressure on the board. Doesn't have quite as much removal. I mean, has removal for single targets, has usually double BGH in there, and has quite a bit of healing as well. But on the side of the arena log, the name of the game is just kind of value and clearing your opponent's board here and there, and having that arena log to basically reset the game over several turns.
Yeah, well, it turns out you can't really reset the game when you get 20 damage to your face off of, Malagos, buffing a few, crazy spells. So a couple of things as far as just setup convenience goes. What you want to see for your for the Malilog player is you want to be able to drop Emperor Thorson when you have at least one Dark Bomb in hand, and getting some value off of, in this case, discounting the Soulfire as well. So that then you can play Malagos, and then you can drop just, maybe it's just 1 to 2 damage worth of spells, but those spells have been discounted, and by the way, they're incredibly strong thanks to Malagos. So the Malagos is in hand. You've got some low-cost spells in hand, but we still need to see the, some more mana, so the game's going to have to keep going on. And you need to be able to drop that Emperor Thorson.
Right, and Emperor Thorson basically works differently with these two decks. Fuoliver just dropped it right there, which definitely makes sense considering what his deck is, and his deck basically just wants to be able to, get some more utility out of that Emperor Thorus and make life easier on themselves. Whereas Tiddler, I mean, you could go ahead and go that route, go for the utility, go for maybe like the temple play, but most of the time you typically want to go for the combo, and that involves Malagos. So definitely different in styles, and we see Fuoliver behind on board here, but with, what is that, 8 cards that are discounted here, it definitely has, a way to get back on the board. Let's see, he's going to start off with that Dark Peddler, see what he can pick up here. 2 reasonable options. You can actually maybe go for the Yolo Gadgets and Jouster there and try to just get a zombie chop for free. But no, it goes for the Mortal Coil. Typically, it's a bit more utility in the Mortal Coil there. And puts out Fugan as well, and probably this Acidic Clump is not really too much reason to hold on to it. And yeah, just fighting back for the board piece by piece. Really no way for Tiddler to kill him right here, so no real reason to get too, panicky for Fuoliver and play out something like a Loatheb or even a Siphon Soul.
Yeah, and Fuoliver does have that mind control tech, so that's still pretty cool. Definitely going to get some value out of that, at least at some point if the board gets big enough. It's a nice way to turn things back around, so we'll see the effectiveness there. And yeah, here comes Bram Bronzebeard. We are going to get a chance to discover not 1 but 2 cards here, just to double his chances of drawing into another Soulfire or Power Overwhelming.
Couple of duds here. I mean, Mortal Coil is reasonable, but basically the first round, Injured Cavaldier, Corruption, and it was a Blood Imp, right? Yeah, so basically a lot of not very good options. Going to be able to use this Corruption on the Fugan, which is kind of nice. I mean, Fugan has a lot of health, so Corruption will be able to, do a decent amount of work here. But yeah, Celestial putting the pressure on. Again, both of these decks, I mean, there's usually 1 Molten Giant in the deck of the Reno.
Oh, that's the combo.
This is the combo. So Mind Control Tech going to take 2 cards here. Takes the Bran. Wait, if you take a Bran off the Mind Control Tech and you have the Bran in your hand, do you take a 3rd card?
No, because it's Battle Cry effect.
1 more time, it's just 2 times.
Yeah, but if you... Oh, right, so it doesn't matter how many brands you have, it's only 2. I do know that if you have a Mind Control Tech and you steal a Knife Juggler, the Knife Juggler actually allows your Mind Control Tech to shoot a knife.
Right.
So that's the one thing to keep in mind, but I guess that doesn't really work in this case.
Yeah, it's like Maiden of the Lake. If you play 2 Maidens of the Lake, your hero power still costs 1.
Right. So that definitely makes sense as far as Maiden Lake concerned. The thing is, you don't typically get 2 Brand Bronzebeards, but in any case, today I learned, and we're going to go ahead and clear out most of this board, and Tiddler went from a really dominating spot to completely, lost the board here to Fuoliver, and he has to get rid of not only 1 brand, but 2 brands, because those guys are pretty... I mean, they do a lot of work if you leave them on the board. I mean, we see a Dr. Boom in the hand, 4 Boom Bots, no thank you.
Yeah, it turns out...
I was going to say that Jiraxis would be very fantastic. You got... Oh, no. Actually, we just talked about that.
Jiraxis comes out twice, right? Yeah. It's like... you face Jiraxis. You face Jiraxis. Eridar, Lord of the Burning. Okay. But, thanks, Jiraxis. In any case, we could see this Mind Control Tech just... thrown away just so he can get more boom bots. That could be the case here. And actually might not be too bad. He can actually just clear his opponent's board using his Mind Control Tech and the Brand Bronzebeard. And then from there, you play the Dr. Boom and get 4 boom bots. And you have still a 2-4 on the board. And a 2-2 on the board. And, 4 1-1 boom bots that explode in your opponent's face. And obviously, if you do that trade, you have to keep the Golden Brand Bronzebeard. That is imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's really no contest. Even Bram Bronzebeard, as part of the League of Explorers, he himself would probably value being golden maybe a little bit more than the regular part too. So instead, we're just going to see here comes Dr. Boom down onto the field. Turns out there's a lot of boom bots about to spawn. 4 boom bots. It's like what's the card? Nefarian? No, not Nefarian.
The fact that you said Nefarian...
Just a staff.
It's
What's
the fact that he said Nefarian, now Nefarian's in my head, and I can't think of the card. Yeah, it's an 8/8 for 9 that fills the board with 1/1 whelps. There you go. But
hey?
hey, you got it. But pretty. It's actually not too bad of a clear here by Tiddler here. He's able to use the Hellfire to clear out those boom bots. Doesn't take a crazy amount of damage, and now he's able to use that big game hunter to help him out here. Picks up or he's gonna play out this Dark Peddler, but doesn't he actually goes for the Surf in the Murgleton? I was gonna say usually when you play these sort of decks, you want to tap as much as possible to make sure that you get to your pieces to what you want as far as the late game is concerned. But he could maybe use that to heal himself up, give himself a bit more time here. Could actually maybe get hunter hero power to give inevitability on this side. But I wonder what he's looking for when he picks at Murgleton. Maybe he figures that he has Twilight Drakes, not Twilight Drakes, excuse me, Azure Drakes in this deck, so he has card draw remaining, so he won't need the tap as much. Will be interesting to see how or what his plan here is.
Yeah, this is Onyxia, as was pointed out in chat. So, congratulations, yeah, Onyxia. That one card that looks pretty good, but is actually not really good. I can't wait until another expansion comes out and makes Onyxia super great, because that sounds like it'd be extremely fun to play against.
So, okay. So I guess he really wanted his Thaddeus here. He could have actually.
You can't really pass up the opportunity to get Thaddeus. Like,
I mean, the thing is, you only have one Shadow Flame in your deck, and he could have used Hellfire there. I guess he is a bit afraid of just dying, but Malygos plus Soulfire is only 9 damage, only, quote unquote.
No, actually, I think you want to get lethal next turn because you already see the BGH.
Right, but there's typically 2 BGHs run. I guess, I mean, you can kind of take that chance, but I guess Fuoliver feels like this is his best chance to potentially win. Hunter Hero Power is actually picked up here, which is kind of interesting. I thought he might potentially go for something like a Druid. In any case, we have a big taunt coming up here. I think there's lethal through this, maybe? This is kind of complicated.
Well, let's see. Yeah, so Hellfire is one good way to get through that, and then of course you also have Siphon Soul, but that's 9 mana, so you can't do anything else.
And you can't use, Hellfire and Implosion isn't enough. Actually, you could, if you Implosion for 4 onto Sir Friendly Murgleton, you win the game. So maybe you just start with that, or is that too risky?
No, how?
So you Implosion for 4 on Murgleton, you Siphon Soul the Imp King boss, and you hit the face for 11.
Oh, it's 12. Because Tiddler just hero power. He used actually the tap. So, I guess you can play low tap because I think you play low tap and Siphon Soul the Imp Gun boss is much better.
Yeah, this is really safe, and it's really hard to deal with this if you don't have BGH here, and you definitely know that your opponent doesn't have BGH if you didn't use it last turn. So it's very difficult for, almost impossible for Fuoliver to die here. Very difficult for Tiddler to clear the board. Let's look what he goes for. He goes for the heal bot, which means he is back up at 19. 16 damage on board, which means that's going to be game. Fuoliver has 2 ways of delivering lethal here. I imagine he's not going to miss this one. And
no, but Hellfire is the wrong lethal.
Huh? Oh, right. Yeah, looks like he is.
No, you played Direxus.
Yeah, you have to let him know who is the Eredar Lord of the Burning Legion. I know. I feel your pain. But Fuoliver does go up 1-0 in this best of 5 series, and Tiddler is 2 games away from being knocked out of the Gold Series Grand Finals.
Yeah, I've never heard the concept of the wrong lethal before. You said that, I was like, wait a second, what do you mean the wrong lethal? And it's like, oh yeah, you got to go for 10 out of 10 BM. But yeah, Tiddler kind of back up against the wall. Little bit rough play so far today. We've already seen one misplay, a lot of frustration there. But I mean, he's not making incredibly bad decisions or anything. It's just things not working out in his favor. Let's put it that way. So we're coming up into here to game number 2, but it's a best of 5. So still plenty of time to come back.
Yeah.
I mean.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did you first?
I was just going to say part of the reason why that Fuoliver was able to take that game was because he played a bit more of a greedy version of Reno Warlock, and so he's able to get a lot of those combos out and really pressure Celestial, or excuse me, Tiddler, which is not usually the case when you play Reno Lock. Sometimes you have to play a bit more defensive so you don't die to things that are more aggressive. But looks like Fuoliver wasn't really concerned with that. But what were you going to say, Shrink?
Yeah, I was going to say that actually Tiddler's qualification into this tournament is his championship at DreamHack, which is half a year ago. And half a year is really a long time in Hearthstone. And Tiddler actually talked about about this, like he's saying that he's actually being into a transitional period, that he's actually doing a lot of managerial stuff rather than just act as a player, and what he is doing is just helping young people to do their bit, and he just giving advice to them. So yeah.
Yeah, Tiddler definitely hasn't had as much time to kind of focus on the game. But on the same token, he is ahead of one of the best teams, if not the best team, in China. So if he hasn't been practicing enough, then he definitely has his teammates to help him out there and give him the best decks possible. So I imagine that, his mechanics are pretty good, might be a bit rusty, but he still has an opportunity to come back in this series. I wouldn't be too sad about that. So it looks like Tiddler here, he wanted to tap, he couldn't really play anything because it just dies. And so he decided to throw away his zombie chow. If he didn't throw away the zombie chow, he overdrew a card there, so it definitely makes sense. However, that did allow essentially Fuoliver to play out a hero power because his Solemn Vigil was one card cheaper, one mana cheaper. And now we're coming up on a 4/10 Twilight Drake, which is pretty tough to deal with. Unless you have Keeper Voldemort or Equality, but I imagine you're not going to really want to use Equality on this. So it looks like Keeper Voldemort is going to be a choice. And nice, easy peasy. Put that down back to a 3/3.
Yeah, Keeper of Voldemort reminds me a lot of the Deep Sea Kraken that a lot of Druid decks tried to make work, that makes all cards like cost 5 mana. Is that card that I looked at and I was like,
the Kraken is the 9/7. Yeah, the Naga Sea Witch is the 5/5.
Oh yeah, Naga Sea Witch. There you go. I
was like, Kraken and Druid. Wait a second, that's genius. No.
You could play Kraken if you play Ancestral Communion Druid.
Right, well, Ancestral Communion, or if you just run like Eviana, that's the real solution. But yeah, it's that card that you're like, hey, is this good? Is this not good? It turns out it's okay, but you definitely have to be able to make it work. So in this situation, great to get rid of like such high health cards, but turns out, where there's one, there's another. And this is going to be the more traditional hand lock because it is running duplicates of cards, right?
Oh no, we already went over this before. It's the Malagos lock. He just has some sort of a tech cards in there with the Defender of Argus. Actually, that's a normal card. What am I talking about? But yeah, basically, so it's Malagos luck. Let's just put it that way. And the Malagos luck has kind of evolved at this point. It almost certainly runs Brand. Sometimes it runs the Ooze to be able to defend against things like Shaman and other decks as well. But in this particular matchup, basically, there's definitely a clock on Tiddler to be able to kill Fuoliver, as quickly as possible. We talked about this before, but it's basically a ticking time bomb with that anything can happen to basically kill. And you see in Fuoliver's hand, he actually does have 2 Murlocs in his hand that he can potentially use in the future. And so when it comes to that turn 10, there's a good chance he has the ability to kill his opponent. It's going to be the onus is on Tiddler essentially here to be the beatdown, so to speak.
You must be the beatdown in order to bring it upon your opponents here.
There's this really old article, right, that everyone who's ever played card games always refers to. I actually never even played, as we see the Ooze take out this True Silver. I actually never even played Magic the Gathering, but somehow I've heard of this article about a player who basically explained, you need to know your role. You need to know if you're the player who's being the aggressor or the player who's being, basically the control, right? And in this case, the person who's trying to win the game as quickly as possible is definitely the Malagos lock here, because you're eventually going to die to Anyfin. There's really no way to survive, to Anyfins, and and really the only way to survive it, honestly, is to be so aggressive that your opponent is forced to play it defensively. So in that case, you're kind of you would be the control in a super indirect way. But yeah, definitely, Tiddler is going to want to be the aggressor, want to be killing his opponent as quickly as possible. And Fuoliver here is just gonna want to defend long enough so that he can get his combo off. And honestly, he's in a really comfortable spot. Looking at what Tiddler has been able to do, they're kind of on parity here as far as the board state is concerned, which is not where you want to be if you're trying to be aggressive.
Yeah, definitely need to dump a lot of Murlocs here too, because we're coming up on turn 10, and Murloc Paladin has the opportunity or the ability to clear out a lot of a lot of dicey board situations, but it can't really survive forever because sooner or later you actually have to use those options, and then you die pretty quickly if you're not able to use your any fins. So good to see all the Murlocs being played that he needs to play. He hasn't played Old Murkai yet, has he?
Yeah, but I think he's fine. I mean, with 2 bluegills and 1 war leader, I mean, you get those 3 guys back on the first time, and then the second time you get 2 war leaders and 4 bluegills, which is, I can't even do the math right now. So it'd be 6 times, yeah, it'd be 24 damage, which is almost certainly going to be lethal the second time around. But I want to talk about something more important here, Rapid. Why didn't those 2 mana Arcane Golems hit the face there? That's just like a little bit of blasphemy there. I don't. Anytime you can get a 2 mana Arcane Golem with a face is what I say. But he did clear out the in-game bosses instead, and it made me very, very sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, like you don't really ever need damage to the face as a Murloc Paladin. Like you've got a bazillion damage in your deck anyway. So I mean, he could kill Tiddler from like 40 health. So it doesn't. Damage is not something that he needs. I always like hitting the face with things that charge anyway, but it's probably a better idea just to clear things out. So now we're gonna get a chance to see exactly how much health he gets from this. It's gonna be 2 times 8. Twice, and yeah, there you go.
I still think this game is over, though. I don't know how. I mean,
oh yeah, definitely. No questions about that.
Like,
how many Morlocks get revived? It's only 4, right?
Okay, the one thing here is he kind of needs to kill this Bran, because if there's a second heal bot, then there could be a chance that Tiddler gets out of range. But I think it's going to be 3. Have we seen 2 war leaders yet already?
I don't think there's a possibility of getting out of range. I think the second.
Well, the second one's 24. If we've only seen 2 bluegills and 1 war leader. Oh, okay, that answers my question. There's a war leader. So yeah, looks like he's gonna go for a bit slower play here. Is Fuoliver. So gonna go for probably he's gonna play out the war leader this turn, so that he's able to just get that out. And then yeah, basically Tiddler is on a 2.5 turn clock right here. Tiddler needs to win by the time before. Fuoliver kills him 2 turns from now, essentially, because he cannot survive this.
Yeah, man, where is this Emperor Thorzen? That's the real question for me, because that's the card Tiddler's needed like 2 games in a row with this Malagos Warlock, and it just hasn't been in there. Like if he had played that card last turn, then he would be setting up for some. Would that be? Yeah, that would be lethal if he had played it last turn. So.
Right.
Definitely.
Well, you can see Tiddler's been tapping a lot this game to make sure that he draws into that. But in my eyes, I feel like he's been tapping too much. Honestly, I feel like he could definitely go for more tempo in this game. But yeah, it looks like everything's kind of gone a bit too late here. He's gonna get I mean, even if he pressures his opponent, Fuoliver does have the heal bot as well. And I think it's just a bit too much. Heal bot does come into the hand, and if he's able to get out of range here.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if that is out of range. I think the first time around, yeah, with the good thing for Tiddler is that he hasn't seen Old Murkai at all, so that's means that the deck isn't quite as crazy bursty as it definitely could be.
Right. So the thing about the crazy thing right now for Fuoliver is he needs to start clearing out his own board in order to make room for Murlocs. I guess. Okay, the one thing here is that he might be a bit afraid of the Azure Drake killing him, so I guess he's just probably going to use one of these bluegills to kill it off, maybe? Maybe? Yeah.
Right, because he's going to get that back anyway.
Right, so they're going to go ahead and do this, and I mean, the best thing that Tiddler could do here is kill off the Murlocs and leave the 1/1s if that were ever possible. Maybe like a demon rat that spares, that's pointed toward Silver Hand recruits instead of the Murlocs, but... I mean, do you see any way out of this for Tiddler? It's such a difficult situation.
An army of hungry crabs.
Yeah, two hungry crabs and then 1 more off the Dark Peddler, right? No
Oh,
more like Paladin today.
discarding Malagos there. That's definitely feels bad, man. So now the win
Yeah.
conditions for
Yeah, no matter
for
what Murloc comes
Tiddlers.
out here, no matter what Murlocs come out here, no matter what order or what combination, it's going to be absolutely lethal there. So Fuoliver's going to actually go up 2-0, and he is on match point in this loser's bracket right now, or loser's match, excuse me. And Tiddler is 1 game away from being out the door here at the Gold Series Grand Finals.
Yeah, this is sort of back up against the wall situation. Tiddler, still remaining calm, or as calm as you can be expected to be. Excuse me, had to
Bless
sneeze
you.
there.
um, yeah, so this is actually kind of why the reason why you've seen more like Paladin, right? I mean, we saw it struggle a bit before, but against the right decks, against a lot of the strongest decks out there in the meta, it can be pretty successful, as we saw Sleepy Shaman, be successful with it yesterday. And I mean, we can definitely see like the reasoning for bringing it here, especially if you can ban something that's good against it. And I believe we had, if I remember correctly, since we don't have the screen in front of, or screen on right now, I think that Fuoliver banned Druid, which definitely makes a lot of sense. You can't really, it's really hard to, continuously get rid of all the Druid stuff because they're really beefy and hard to kill. So, I mean, that's definitely a good strategy if you're running more like Paladin. You get rid of a lot of his weaknesses and you're able to eventually get a win. But that all said, we are going to be going into Game 3. Could be the end here for Tiddler. And he's going to go with his Patron Warrior to be able to defend against this Freeze Mage. And basically, this matchup, the win condition for Patron hasn't really changed even post, War Song. Obviously, you can press your opponent in different ways rather than trying to go for an OTK. For instance, you can just go for more tempo-oriented play. But on the other hand, you are able to go for the same type of play, which is to just put 2 Armor Smiths on the board, get Patrons on there as well, and you whirl one a couple times, and you're basically at an armor total that's you can't cut into, you can't get past if you're the Freeze Mage.
All right, well, I got to take a look at exactly what to expect. My stream is lagging there a little bit. Oh,
I'm still on screen.
Okay, yeah, that I didn't realize that, but now that I do, it's kind of interesting to see Tiddler's deck choices because they're all they're all classes that have like a not necessarily more popular variant, but a like another way to play them. So I'm interested to see what his Patron Warrior can accomplish here. Now, I guess traditionally Patron Warrior does pretty well against, or it does pretty poorly against.
Oh, it
Mage.
still does pretty well. I mean, it hasn't really changed from before the Warsong nerf. Basically, you're like I just mentioned, all you have to do is do what you did before, which is get a couple armor smiths on the board, use the patrons as well, and then just get a ton of armor, and you basically can't cut through it with the Freeze Mage.
So you're kind of playing it a little bit more like a control style, where you just want a ton of armor to be able to get out of range, instead of trying to actually kill your opponent with a bunch of damage. Well, I mean, it's not like you're not trying to kill your opponent with a bunch of damage, but
yeah, I mean that's kind of the nice thing about playing Patron is that you have multiple ways to win against Freeze Mage. A lot of times when you play against Freeze Mage, you just have to kill them before they kill you. But for the Patron, I mean, if you have the right hand, you can basically tempo them out of the game and just play out your hand, play out your tempo cards like this Shredder that we have on the board for Tiddler, and eventually you can just tempo them down. And even if they defend against you, it means that they're probably having to use a lot of their resources and a lot of their burn to do so. And so that can be one option, but a great backup option is to just go with what I just mentioned with the Armor Smiths, and just that flexibility makes it a pretty good matchup for the Patron Warrior against the Freeze Mage.
all right. Well, as far as Patron Warrior hands go, it was pretty good, but he actually used his Inner Rage a little bit earlier, and so now he does not have that for the Patron, which would be a pretty good turn right now to go ahead and drop that, or at least turn 6 next turn. So. Otherwise, I mean, it's still not terrible. You'd still get, at least 2 patrons out there. But the big combo that you were talking about, D2, is the need to be able to get these big whirlwind effects on a patron board with an armor smith down and get a ton of armor off that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Fuoliver is drawing a ton of secrets from his deck rather than the my scientist. But interesting about this matchup is that it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you are there's a possibility for you to go to fatigue. So not drawing cards is actually good for fatigue.
Right. That's definitely true. If you draw, it's actually kind of bad if you cycle through your deck in that way because you go to fatigue faster. On the other hand, you do want to get to your more important cards, so it's kind of a delicate balance between drawing a few cards, but not drawing too much. But looks like Tiddler's just going for a bit more of an aggressive stance here. I mean, obviously the ways in which I said were the kind of the win conditions for both sides, that those are available, but typically you see players go with a different style as far as how they're going about trying to win the game. And I've seen Tiddler win before going for a more aggressive style. It looks like that's the stance he's going to take this game.
All right, well, speaking about stances, filling up the board there, and always, a situation that you want to put yourself in as a patron warrior, just filling the board up with a ton of cool stuff. He didn't really get the opportunity to get a ton of armor off of it, and of course, we know from looking at the hand that we're going to see most likely a Blizzard next turn, although Blizzard will not freeze the patron warrior that spawns here, so that might be a little bit of an interesting situation.
Right, so it looks like he's gonna actually ping this patron, which doesn't make too much of a difference, honestly. Because it does make a difference because
because it's not going to spawn another one.
Right. So so the 3/1 doesn't spawn another one, so that's going to be easily pinged off the following turn. So my mistake. Good play by Fuoliver there. And decent pickup here from Tiddler. I mean, obviously, sometimes you don't really want to be drawing too many cards, but in this case, it looks like he's, like I said before, going for a more aggressive stance. He is committing to hero power as well every single turn. He could have gone for maybe, fireworksing the face there. So it looks like he's actually going for like a half and half play. Like, I'll be aggressive, but maybe being aggressive will force out some removal, some burn from my opponent, and then if I keep hero powering up, then he'll run out of burn and maybe he won't be able to kill me. So that's like kind of half and half style of play here from Tiddler.
All right, well, Tiddler is currently completely helpless. He's like, hey, I got some big minions. Oh, wait, they can't do anything. It's like, how'd you like to get your board completely cleared and then frozen and then cleared again? And so still some struggles from Tiddler trying to get something going, but he does still have Grom in his hand. That's a ton of damage, but is it really enough to not only be able to get his opponent down to to 0 to break the ice block, but to then kill him subsequent turns? I don't know. He's gonna need at least Hunter hero power off of the Sir Finley Murgleton if he wants to throw that down now.
Right, and it looks like he's not committing to it. So that I think this Murgleton is probably not going to be used for the rest of the game unless Tiddler finds himself in an opportunity to kill his opponent. You saw him right there. He basically just wanted to help clear his board, and now his plan is starting to pay off, honestly, because we just saw Frostbolt being used, and that's pretty key. Obviously, it's extra damage to face, but it's also extra damage if you turn into a Fireball with Antonidas. So you can see Tiddler's plan start to form out here. He's just basically saying, okay, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on. I'm going to force you to use a bird. I've already forced you to use one Blizzard, one Cone of Cold already. So you might be starved for ways to freeze me, ways to clear my board. And then from there, you might have to use burn. And then from there, I can just keep hero powering and eventually win the long game that way. So kind of, again, just a half and half play, being aggressive enough to force out a response from Fuoliver, but kind of passive enough that I get enough from my hero power here. And again, probably not going to see Sir Finley Murgleton for most likely the entirety of this game.
Yeah, like you said, there's a way to win and a way to. Oh wow! Now that armor does two more. I don't think extra damage. Yeah, there you go.
It damages him just as much as it helps. No, okay. But yeah, we'll see. And it looks like he's continuing to just armor up here. Doesn't really need to play out anything from his hand. I'm actually gonna go for the Grom here. Looks like he can wait no longer, so I'm gonna throw that on the board. And yeah, it puts a little more pressure onto his opponent. He does have an Execute if ever there's, a Doomsayer, though it's kind of painful to use Execute on Doomsayer when it's the only one in your hand and things like, Alexstrasza and Thorson, or excuse me, Alexstrasza and Antonidas might be coming up, which we do see are in the hand of Fuoliver here. So this game is definitely going back and forth, and it's going to be tough to see, who can outsmart the other in this instance. Really a tough matchup, honestly.
Well, we're gonna have to find out if there is a way to, I guess, maybe do more than just play into the Doomsayer. And I think, yeah, that's what he's trying to work on. Is like, well, what do I do with the fireball? And he is gonna use it to ping down Grom a little bit more. What's the
Well,
reasoning behind that?
I guess he just wants to make sure that he kills it no matter what. But this actually gives Tiddler the opportunity to just let this go and not use execute, because your opponent's already used a fireball on your Grom. He's already basically kind of had to deal with it. He's committed a Doomsayer, a Frost Nova, and a fireball, so you can kind of get away with not actually killing this right now. Really, if you just let your 4/9 Grom die to a Doomsayer, it's really painful, but right now I think he's actually okay just letting this go and not even using execute. Yeah, and that's what he actually does. So kind of, Fuoliver helping out Tiddler in this situation. Didn't really actually need to kill that because he knew that that's one less fireball in the hand of Fuoliver.
Yeah, and hey, less fireball is always a good thing to see, and especially because he hasn't actually taken damage yet. He's at 43 health, and his opponent, of course, unfortunately, not so lucky. Now, the way that Freeze Mage, works is that you freeze the board, and then you get a ton of fireballs off of Archmage and Tinnitus. Sounds great in theory, but if you actually can't get a ton of fireballs, then unfortunately, having 42 health against Freeze Mage turns out to be a pretty good thing.
Yeah, playing out this...
Now Fuoliver can pin the Acolyte, then Fatigue will be some kind of
Right, yeah.
troublesome.
He can maybe play the fatigue game here. It looks like 6 and 10, is that right? He keeps hovering over it really, really quickly, so I think it was 6 and 10, so he's actually pretty far behind. Yeah, it looks like that is the case. So it would take a lot of work, actually, for Fuoliver to basically fatigue him here. But he could go for that route if he finds that he has no other way to win this game. But yeah, kind of an interesting play here by Tiddler. I mean, maybe he could have gone for something else potentially. Perhaps he's looking for that Armor Smith, and he figures if he draws that, then he's in really a good position no matter what, because he can get so much armor, and he's already 4 cards ahead of his opponent, or his opponent's 4 cards ahead of him in the fatigue race. Fatigue, kind of backwards race. You don't want to go there. But I mean, this is again an awkward turn for Fuoliver here. We might just see him drop the Alexstrasza. You can't really use it to heal yourself at the end of the game because you're just taking too much fatigue damage at that point. Doesn't want to play his Acolyte either. Doesn't want to play Thorson here because he needs more pieces in his hand for the Antinitis. So yeah, just gonna ping that and get Tiddler closer to fatigue here. Now Tiddler has to actually get rid of this Acolyte, or basically just empty out his hand in order to not overdraw here, which he definitely doesn't want to do, because he definitely doesn't want to get rid of certain cards in his deck. And most importantly, I feel like, would be the Armor Smith.
Yeah, definitely Armor Smith is... I don't know, I keep wanting to see like the double Armor Smith dream, because that's definitely a good thing to save for. But still good to see at least one. And like you said, every single Blade Flurry effect that just gives him more and more armor puts Tiddler in an even better spot. And I'm still trying to... Ideally, you want to drop Emperor Thorson on a turn where you can get discounted spells that you'll be able to get more fireballs with from Antinitis, but currently there is a grand total of 1 possible fireball being generated by that Archmage, which is not going to cut it versus 43 armor, or 43 health.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of the dilemma that he finds himself in. And also, one interesting thing about that last turn by Tiddler, he kind of realized that his opponent, he saw 1 Conical already, and it would be kind of a waste if Fuoliver went for a ping plus Frostbolt on that card. Looks like he actually is going... No, he's going to go for it on the Frothing Berserker instead. But yeah, so the Frothing Berserker puts enough, threats on the board that, Fuoliver has to deal with it, because, a couple Whirlwinds and your Ice Block is popped. But, he didn't actually play too many cards on the board, because he knew that his Acolyte wouldn't really draw too many unless you really commit to it on the side of Fuoliver. So this game is actually super interesting. And like you said, now the Frostbolt got nothing to actually discount here. And I mean, is Fuoliver just going all in on winning the fatigue battle? It might be a bit difficult for him.
I mean, it certainly seems like one that he's hoping for. Unfortunately, like I don't know, as a freeze mage, you don't like... I don't know. You've got, extra armor that you can give yourself from ice barriers, but fatigue battles, especially with this Lotheb in play, are not certainly, things that you're definitely going to win.
Right, and I think they're about even right now after all the pings that happened. So it looks like 4 cards left for Fuoliver. Hopefully he hovers over Tiddler's deck as well. But it looks like the same amount of cards at this point. And I mean, 15 armor for Tiddler. So I don't really see Fuoliver winning the fatigue game. Maybe he has a plan. Maybe he has some cards in his deck that can help him out here. But I mean, looking at the hand of Tiddler, he's just waiting for that second Armor Smith, and there it is. I think he's just gonna go for it now here. This is actually pretty crazy too because he has the Unseeable go on board. Let's look. Does he commit to the Patron? Doesn't really need to, honestly. He could just go for what he has right here. So
Yeah,
I think
double armor smith is more than what he would ever need to win this game. I don't think there's any possible combination. Like I'm trying to think of a world in which a freeze mage had enough fireballs to get through 27 armor, and that world just doesn't exist. Plus, he's getting all of these cascading whirlwind effects.
Well, Rapid, that would exist like about 2 years ago when Astraza take away all the armor.
right, yeah, but
Yeah,
unfortunately that's not the
turns
case.
out that was super broken, Shrink. And so thankfully, some semblance of balance does exist within Hearthstone. There is a Hearthstone god, and he made it, he fixed that change.
He was a just
So,
god, and
yeah. Well, I don't
but
know. He did make us deal with 2 mana Unleash the Hounds. That was not very just, but it's a little bit more just now, and so I think we can all be a little bit more thankful about that.
right, and this is basically a losing play here from Fuoliver. I mean, as painful as it was, he had the Flame Strike there. Maybe he's saving his Flame Strike because he's afraid of patrons coming out, but this is kind of showing, this is kind of just exemplifying that, or how much Tiddler has basically outplayed Fuoliver this game, because, I mean, he's put Fuoliver in a position where he can't use Flame Strike, and in a situation where he needs to use Flame Strike. And so, yeah, this game is all but over. Fuoliver was only able to gain 2 fireballs. That's not going to be enough. This Alexstrasza is going to be easily dealt with using the Execute in hand. And basically, we're going through the motions right here as we finish out this game.
Wow. And at least for now, yeah, just like you said, going through the motions. For now, all we're really waiting for is for Fuoliver to say, hey, I can deal 15 damage with my Alexstrasza, isn't that cool? And for Tiddler to say, yes, that's cool, but you know what's also really cool? I think 46 armor on top
Right.
of that. So, yeah, it definitely feels good, man, if you're the patron warrior. And he can even set up for a lot more armor next turn, but
Dude, I want to see the BM Sir Finley Mergleton just change your hero power right here.
it's like, all right, I'm done with the armor hero power. I already won that game.
I have
Now I
enough
have
armor. I don't need any armor
Yeah.
for this fatigue battle, right? And for all the thinking of the Acolyte on the side of Tiddler, Fuoliver actually goes to fatigue first, and his last card, as you can see, there is the Blood Mage Thalanos, which draws a card, which is what you want to see right now. Looks like, okay, so he saved the Alexstrasza for his own face, and he's just hoping against hope that there's no answer for it. Right. So the last card in Tiddler's deck is Acolyte's Inconsequential. BGH comes down, and if we don't see a concede here, then I'm gonna be very sad.
All right, well, yeah, he's gonna see.
There you go.
Yeah, all right, there we
Thank you,
go.
follower. Thank you so much.
D2 doesn't have to be sad. Good guy Fuoliver, saving us all a little bit of time, and so Tiddler will take that victory at least. So nice to see, the game not over, or the series not over yet, still surviving in the Gold Series. And I mean, for all we know, this is the beginning of the comeback. D2.
It could actually be a comeback, to be completely honest. I mean, we have Freeze Mage on the side of Fuoliver here. And Shaman doesn't seem like it would be good against Freeze Mage just because it's an aggro deck, and Freeze Mage is good against dealing with aggro decks, but Doomhammer makes a really big deal because you can't freeze the face every single time. So that is the card, along with obviously Sir Finley Mergleton, that can help finish out the game. But that would be a deck. That would be an interesting matchup to see. And then obviously the other one is going to be the Mallylock that Tiddler currently has in his arsenal, and that has 2 heal bots, which is a really big deal, and also has a lot of pressure that you can put on the opponent, plus some burn to be able to get through those ice blocks and put a lot of pressure on your opponent. So honestly, Tiddler has a really good chance at coming back here, and we'll see if he's able to do so. Starting with the aggro Shaman. And I mean, let's look what he mulligans for. Honestly, I would mulligan as hard as possible for a Doomhammer. Keeps a couple of 3-drops, which is kind of interesting. He obviously can coin into one of those and use the other one. He threw away his other, Argent Horse Rider because he doesn't want too many of those cards. But this is kind of interesting, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, not really a good hand, so to speak. Whenever you're playing an aggro deck and you don't drop something turn one, I'm not too sure about that. I've even seen some shaman decks run like Worgens early too, just to have ensure that they get another 1-drop. But it's a little bit too early on your curve. And there finally is the Tunnel Trog, so going to be able to coin and then Tunnel Trog zap. Alternatively, just going to go for the Spirit Wolves. He misses out on 2 damage on the Tunnel Trog by not using it there, but he'll still be able to Trog and then overload himself next turn.
Yeah, a lot of times when you talk to players who play aggro shaman, they'll say Tunnel Trog or bust. 1-drop or bust. You got to mulligan everything for those cards. And in this instance, Tiddler kind of paying for it. He could have had extra damage here if he was able to pick up that Tunnel Trog as well. I mean, if you have the Tunnel Trog, there's a decent chance you pick up something as well to help you out there. And not going to be the case. He is able to play the Tunnel Trog after the Feral Spirit, but obviously not going to get that buff. But we'll see how this game progresses. Reasonable hand for both players. I mean, obviously you don't want to be picking up too many secrets if you are the mage, but having that Ice Barrier will help you out. It's basically a heal 8, basically a healing touch for himself there. And so, yeah, I mean, this game, it's kind of can go either way. There's a ton of bursts in the hand of Tiddler, but also some options here for Fuoliver to hold it off.
Yeah, so for Fuoliver, he is doing it the best that he can to hold this off for as long as possible. Early game is traditionally a pretty weak point for the Freeze Mage, so you can see it's like, hey, I definitely need to kill off the Tunnel Trog with my Frostbolt, but Frostbolts are pretty valuable spells to have later on when you're using Antonidas. So he does have a second one, but now he has to deal with 3 Spirit Wolves out there on the field, and so instead of dealing with them, he's just going to start setting up, sort of sack that turn to set up for later on.
Right, I think from the Freeze Mage's perspective, they're basically just trying to, as we see the Doomhammer come into the hand, they're basically just trying to hold off the damage as long as possible. And then later on, once they've stabilized, once the Shaman out of cards, they can start worrying about, basically killing their opponent. But looking pretty bad here for Fuoliver. He is down to 16 health, has ways to kind of stall out his opponent. He can maybe go for a really tempo-y play here, utilizing that Frost Nova and an Ice Barrier. But in that instance, you're kind of throwing away basically 2 of your best cards. And so that might not be an option. You kind of want to get your Ice Barrier as quickly as possible, though. One problem if you don't get your Ice Barrier, say Tiddler, hits you for a bit more damage this coming turn, and then you want to play the Ice Barrier, but you can't really because you know that it can burst you down from there. You want to get rid of the board first. So a lot of times in matches against very extreme face decks, it's basically Ice Barrier as quickly as possible. And looks like he's going to go for killing off his Mad Scientist to get the Ice Barrier rather than the other way around, and plays his Acolyte out for more card draw.
All right, well, Frozen board is an unhelpful board for Tiddler. He's like, all right, guys, let's go. And they're all just like sitting there frozen. So he's going to drop Sir Finley Murgleton. Ooh. We'll see what he gets, and none of the good hero powers.
This is actually pretty tough, right? Because you don't really want to have the Paladin hero power, so it's actually, strangely enough, between Warrior and the... Yeah, actually does go for a Warrior and Warlock. He actually does go for the Warrior. This is really interesting because Tiddler knows that he has so much damage that Fuoliver has to use his burn. He's gonna have to use his burn to kill off the minions, right? He's gonna have to use burn like Frostbolts and Ice Lances to hit the face of Tiddler as well, right? Or just to maybe just freeze him and not even do too much damage, right?
Right.
So by doing that, by getting rid of all of his burn, he can actually play the long game here and gain armor and run the Freeze Mage out of damage and win that way, which would be absolutely insane.
Yeah, and that's so weird to think about because that's like saying you want to play like Reno Face Hunter. It's like no, that doesn't work that way because like Face Hunter like it stops working after like turn 10, 11, 12 because there's just not enough options there. But it turns out if you can switch using Sir Finley Murgleton from being super aggressive to going the defensive route, then yeah, the mage is maybe not going to be able to keep up.
This is kind of like the same thing as playing Elemental Destruction in Shaman. Basically, as long as you can make the game go a bit longer and take the damage away from your opponent, then you can eventually win the game. I also turned into Reynad stream one time and he's running double heal bot in aggro Shaman. So there's definitely, this thing is somewhat common as far as going for a more defensive approach, realizing that you have the requisite burn to finish out the game in the long run.
Yeah, that's definitely true, but one problem for this kind of play is that you don't really have a good way to deal with your opponent's minions, because your minions will get AoE, and we see that Tiddler is saving his spells, maybe waiting for the tunnel track or do something else. But if you go that way, like you don't have things to deal with the Astraza, you don't have things to deal with the Antonidas, which might be proving problematic for him.
Well, to be fair, 1/1s and hurting yourself with Warlock Hero Power doesn't really deal with that either. Though I suppose you might draw into something that could be helpful later on, but. Yeah, this is kind of an awkward situation for Tiddler here, especially hitting for 3 right there is really problematic. He could have actually popped the block this turn, which could have put so much pressure on Fuoliver. He can still technically pop the block, but it's kind of a interesting situation what he goes for first. He's going to go for the second crackle here. First one rolled for 3, second one rolls for 5, so now he can pop it at 1. This will put a lot of pressure on Fuoliver, which means he likely is going to Alexstrasza his face here. And yeah, this is a pretty big commitment here by Tiddler, and this might actually just be game once this Alexstrasza comes up. And
well, yeah, he draws into the second ice block, but even that is maybe I don't want to say too late, but it's still somewhat unhelpful because I mean we all know that there's definitely a potential to not only get through this 15 health. It won't be this turn, but it's still going to be a little bit interesting to see how Fuoliver actually wins the game at this point too.
You mean wait? Are you talking about Celestial or Tiddler or because Tiddler can for Fuoliver he can just hit the face with the Alexstrasza and just ice block and you're fine I think, but
yeah.
Especially with Emperor, yeah.
Yeah, so this is just really awkward for Tiddler, especially because he has to swing at his weapon now. He was thinking that maybe he could pressure his opponent and by just using burn spells, and then from there maybe he picks up another burn spell and kill him directly, and his opponent doesn't have Ice Block or Alexstrasza, then he's in a really good spot. But in this situation, it's just really impossible here for Tiddler. And going to be dead in about 2 turns here is Tiddler, and that's just unfortunate. This is kind of like the last game but in reverse. It's just really sad to see.
Yeah, especially since this is his last game that he has to lose. It's just kind of rough to watch the end of this. If he had saved his Wind Fury, his last 2 charges on his Doomhammer, and then used I don't know, double Rockbiter weapon, then maybe that's the way to come back. But that's a little bit too optimal to hope for, and especially now with another ice block, there's really no way that he's going to chunk through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now 13 damage going to face. There is lethal on board for Fuoliver, and even if he didn't have lethal on board, he has 7 damage in hand. Actually, 8 damage out of his pocket, I guess, if you include the hero power. Double Earth Shock, not going to help him out here. He's actually kind of trolling Tiddler, saying this is how he started up the day with a huge mistake with Double Earth Shock. And that is going to be it. Tiddler unfortunately falls, goes 0-2 here, and he is out of the Gold Series tournament. Fuoliver lives on to at least another match, and he still